Guru Nation, welcome back. You are joined by my most red-pilled friend, as you can tell by his sponsored by the United States of America, Chris Sauber. You're gonna offend many people with that shirt, man.
Why does the United States offend them? That's all I have to ask.
Right. Well, leave the comments down below if you have a correct answer for Chris. This topic does get political a little bit, but it's I think one of the best writers in our industry on the CRO vertical is Joel White, and you may have actually interviewed him with me once. He's the owner at Market Cap Consulting. He used to work for CROs in the past, and now he analyzes them and studies them. And he wrote something about tariffs, the strong dollar, CROs, and offshoring on LinkedIn.
The name definitely
And
rings a bell. Sorry.
yeah, no, he's like, if you want to know, if you want your finger on the pulse of the CROs, he's the guy to go to in our industry, like by far.
All right.
And he's very logical and reasonable in his explanations. And I'm just going to read you his article. It's like super short. So it's like three, four paragraphs maybe. And he wrote this on Monday. And by the time you're watching this, Guru Nation, or listening, it's going to be Friday. So I'm about a week away. But I'll link to it underneath. And if you're not following Joel, which I suspect Chris is not, you need to go connect with Joel and read his stuff because he doesn't waste words when he writes. He writes only what's important, and this is a short read. So let me read it, okay? Tariffs, strong dollar, CROs, offshoring. When I play out how US tariffs could affect CROs, I keep coming back to their impact on exchange rates. The US dollar has been in a strong uptrend over the past few months, and when you zoom out several years as well, when the dollar is strong, the cost of personnel in non-US dollar countries goes down in US dollar terms. For
Mm-hmm.
example, an $80,000 euro salary that cost you 88,000 US dollars 6 months ago now only costs you 82 to 83,000 US dollars. Conversely, if you're a European company with a US based staff, a stronger US dollar means your US personnel become more expensive in terms of euro or the pound, etc. In both cases, the strong US dollar makes it gradually more attractive to locate or relocate more work in non-US dollar countries. The effect is strongest in countries whose currencies have weakened the most against the US dollar. No surprise then that the long list of loud, publicly announced CRO layoffs last year was much more quietly paired with shifting work to lower cost non-US dollar countries. If these tariffs further strengthen the US dollar, or even just lock in higher US dollar rates for longer, global CROs will be further incentivized to relocate more US based work outside the US and to send that work, ironically, to those countries, regions targeted by the tariffs, since those countries' currencies are the ones hardest hit by tariffs. Which CRO operations would be most impacted? Those which can most readily be moved across geographies, i.e., you have some biometrics like programming and data processing, pharmacovigilance, you have document management, central monitoring, medical writing, and to some extent, certain SG&A areas like pricings, proposals, finance, accounts payables, etc. Not what I was hoping to write about on a Monday morning, but here we are, and that's the state of CROs and jobs. And we haven't been quiet about this. I've been loud about this, and even when you are even loud about this when we've done our Guru After Darks, and we've touched on this topic. And the my trip to Mexico City last year was eye-opening, man. I mean, you hear it's one thing to hear a lot of Latin America outsourcing. It's another thing to see it, like go in the offices and shake hands with those people and realize when you're talking to them, their English is perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Their knowledge of the industry is the same. They're maybe harder working in some because they're not used to the
They're not
opportunity.
entitled.
There you go. And then you're like, whoa, does PPD really like lose anything by outsourcing it here?
don't disagree with anything you're saying, but I do disagree with that article because
Oh,
he's
go
not
ahead, go ahead.
there's one consideration that he's not mentioning there. Um, and it's probably too complicated with something that requires an education or as complex as research. So I'm going to use something I think is a little more simplified as an example.
Yeah.
Um, a gadget maker, right? Somebody who just works with their hands. So this item is made in China. And let's say after all things are considered without tariffs, it's a 20% reduction in costs, right? So the supplier here or the vendor here, Walmart, let's say, well, let's even make it simpler. They want to buy a screwdriver. They want to sell a screwdriver. There's a vendor here in America that sells it for $1 to Walmart. And there's a vendor in China, after all considerations, transportation, because those are costs that they have to pay. It gets here and they'll sell it to them for 80 cents, right? That's exactly how it works.
Right.
Um, Now, Walmart says, well, I'm going to go with the cheapest product so I can pass that on to my customer. What Joel's not considering here is the actual effect of the tariff in terms of that. He's only considering the US dollar. And he's even wrong there because the dollar is falling. It's right now, if you look at the Dixie chart, it's 107. A week ago or 2 weeks ago, it was at 110. So it's been declining.
In
Um,
regards to what?
and its value to other currencies. So if you
Ah,
look at
okay.
Dixie, it's DXY. That's the value of the dollar in a bulk basket to other currencies. It's decreasing in value. But anyhow,
Okay.
that's not that big of a deal. It's whatever. It's still pretty high. 107 is still pretty high. But anyhow, if we're charging China a 25% tariff and the vendor here in America is only saving 20%, they're going to buy local, right?
Right. Right.
So he's not considering that effect. What tariffs actually, the purpose of tariffs are twofold, right? Before the income tax in 1913, I think it was, um, there was no income tax. It was entirely all income that the federal government raised was through tariffs. So one is generating income, but two, it's to keep jobs at home. That is the sole purpose of tariffs, those two things.
Right.
Keeping jobs at home by penalizing companies. Hey, fine. You want to buy overseas products, it will cost you more to do so. Now, that's a simpler example than dealing with the CRO space.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, the CRO space, complicated because the buyer is the pharma, right? Who are
mhm.
not just US. I mean, Boehringer Ingelheim, for example, Novo Nordisk,
Yeah,
AstraZeneca, these are all like European
it's way more involved
pharma, right? The only reason European pharma use US CROs, well, first of all, we invented it, but it's our access to the US patients, which is, I mean, this is the biggest market for
because
selling
of the
these
FDA.
drugs. And not only because of the FDA, but it's the biggest market for selling the drugs. Like we're the ones paying the most for these drugs. I've gone through this with Darshan many,
Yeah,
many times.
you're
Like,
going off on a complete tangent, right? Because
right,
the United
right.
States pays for R&D for the rest of the world.
Exactly. So that's why, I mean, Joel's argument, whether it's right or wrong, it highlights the trend which happened way before tariffs was a household name.
Mm-hmm.
This outsourcing, I didn't go to Mexico City like last month. I went like in January of 24.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody was talking about tariffs back. And this was already, it wasn't like they just started doing this. These
Mm-hmm.
were established. Chris, I wish you came there with me, man. It was like no different than going to Research Triangle Park.
Mm-hmm.
There's no difference other than like there's taco vendors on the street. And you're like, okay, like I'm in Mexico. But when you step in the building, everyone speaks English.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone greets you. You're
See,
in a
that's
CRO. You're in a CRO.
See, that's where I don't know how tariffs would work, right? I don't even know if they could work because you're not importing anything really to speak of, especially if the company's not an American company to begin with. So
Right.
you'd have to put tariffs on that company, right? Like
Yes.
Boehringer or Ingelheim, right? You have to put tariffs on them to affect
Well, what policy should do in these cases is because these are not fidget makers or gadget makers or whatever.
widget. I was looking for that
Widget, all
word.
right,
I
widget.
was looking for that word.
Yeah, these are not widget makers. Like these
Right.
are high value jobs, right? Like these
Mm-hmm.
are, I mean, you're talking about pharmacovigilance. Like Drug safety. You got to be pretty damn qualified.
Yeah, where I agree with Joel, and to your point, is I'm not sure tariffs will apply in this case.
I don't think they make a difference. This
No,
outsourcing
no,
trend
they
has
will make
been
a difference if they can apply. I disagree with that because if you charge them enough to
mhm.
off, unless they're saving 75% or something, you can't
Oh,
charge that tariff.
so you're saying you're advocating for let's put tariffs on like PPD for even doing this in the first place or something.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I don't think they can. I
Right.
don't see how they would.
Because this is a multinational company. Like,
Right, right. So how would you do that? How could
and
you
it's a
even approach
US, I
that?
mean they're headquartered in the US, so you can't put tariffs on a US company.
Right.
This is
I
just B2B outsourcing. Like
I I'm sure there's a way, right? I just don't know how that would work.
they brought in super smart people. Say what you want about this administration. I'm not gonna get political. But they brought in super smart people to solve complicated problems.
Sure.
And I'm not sure RFK is getting in the weeds as far as CROs and things like that. He's got more macro
Oh,
things
I
to focus
doubt
on.
he at all. I really don't think he's going to be that focused on the FDA to even begin with. I think his primary focus is food,
Food.
which I agree with.
Yeah. And he's gone on record repeatedly and said he's not anti-vaccine.
Hmm.
He actually wants to see more work done. He actually holds a lot of CRISPR related stocks.
Not only
He had to
that,
disclose what he holds.
people getting paranoid about RFK in our industry are not really seeing the full picture because, in my opinion, it's going to create work what he wants to do. He said he wants further testing. I mean,
Right. More studies. Yeah.
yep,
More
that,
long-term safety study. Well, the only ones that don't like that are the big pharma.
yeah,
They
exactly.
don't want to do the long form.
And maybe that's why they're trying to make everyone paranoid.
Right. But Joel, I mean, it was interesting read
So,
regardless because it he's got his finger on this trend that with or without tariffs was going to happen anyways. It's just saving money. And what are we going to do when AI does the job even cheaper than people in Latin America? Like
yeah, for
pharmacovigilance,
free,
basically,
essentially.
essentially for free. It but basically dollar cost out. It's deflationary.
Yeah.
It eventually leads to free. What is value add is the productive value that it unlocks by having all these tools. That's where the
Hmm.
value add comes in, which I think the sites are still there. I think some of these CROs can get creative, but right now it's just pure dollar arbitrage play. And if you can have a startup specialist in Mexico for one-fifth of the cost as in North Carolina, you're going to do that.
So, you as a business owner are supposed to do this. You're supposed to pursue the cheapest means in which to bring your best product to market,
Hmm.
right? That's your responsibility as a
Because
business
if you
owner.
don't do, someone else will,
Yep.
and you're going to be competed out.
Now, where the president of the United States, whoever it is, right now it's Trump, but it could be anyone, their responsibility is try to maintain or improve the lifestyles of Americans. So this is where you have kind of a butting of the heads, right? You want business to be successful and be in the United States, but at the same time, you want the individuals of the United States to be successful, right?
Right.
So I'm not necessarily disagreeing with Joel's perspective on this. I just don't think he really considered in detail tariffs, right? And he could have avoided that topic simply because I said I don't know how you implement these if you even can.
Right. Well, his argument with tariffs is not that it's directly related to CRO outsourcing. It's
No, I
that
get it. It's an
the
effect on the
tariffs
dollar.
strengthening the dollar,
No, I get it.
or even just locking in higher US dollar rates for longer,
Mm.
global CROs just further incentivized to relocate more work outside of the US.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
and to send that work, ironically, to those countries that are punished supposedly by the
Mm-hmm.
tariffs. Whereas, yeah, maybe their consumer class is getting punished, but their workforce, like the white collar people, are very happy. Um, and Mexico, we got to make a trip to Mexico City one day, man. You just got to go out there.
I'd have to get a passport, so give me plenty of notice,
Yeah, well, now I got a newborn, so that ain't happening for a while. You got plenty of time. Plenty
like
of time.
2 or 3 years.
I
You'll
was
be you'll
thinking
be
more
going
like
to
5.
Disneyland. Disneyland before Mexico.
We've figured not to travel anywhere with him until he's like old enough to know what he's looking at, as far as getting on a plane is concerned.
Sure, that makes absolute sense. There's why spend the money for something that can't appreciate it.
Right, right.
Yep.
But that's Joel's point in regards to tariffs. It's not so
Yeah,
much that it's direct relationship, it's that it's
but it could be. It could be.
orthogonal to it.
It could be depending on because I'm sure this is why Trump's implementing tariffs. It's not necessarily to raise revenue, though he says it is. I think it's more to bring jobs home. That's my
Yeah,
personal
it's to
opinion.
punish company. Exactly right. Yeah.
So
But that's for direct to consumer,
yeah, exactly. That's
right?
where
Like car manufacturers,
absolutely. This is where you get into
shirt,
a gray area.
right? Because we're in a B2B industry where the
Yep.
consumers are other multinational companies.
But if he truly wants to generate as many jobs as possible, he would approach these types
Yes.
of companies as well
Unless he
in
thinks
some
unless
capacity.
unless he thinks it's only a matter of time before AI just levels that playing field out too, to where,
It's not worth it. Short term gain.
yeah, and I've always said, do you want to be, I did a video today. Daniel came over. We shot a video
Mm-hmm.
of how to like unconventional roles and how to keep yourself as a clinical research worker relevant. And it's having a multiple skill sets. The closer you are to the patient interaction, the safer you are because you can't outsource like what my coordinators do right now, yours and mine. We
Mm-hmm.
co-own Yuma Clinical Trials. What they're doing in the clinic right now, you're never going to outsource that to anywhere. You have
Can't.
to be here in the
Mm-hmm.
clinic doing that. And so now those are like lower paying jobs or entry level jobs, and these higher paying jobs like at the CROs where you're dealing with pharmacovigilance, medical monitors. I remember this trend at the earliest I can remember a medical monitor on one of my studies not being in the US was about 10 years ago. It's because these are global studies, right? So you have sites everywhere, US, you have sites in Mexico, you have sites in Europe, you have sites in Colombia, you have sites in Russia. At least back then you did.
Mm-hmm.
The medical monitor was usually someone from Mexico or Russia, speaks English, but it's going to be like one fifth of a cost of a medical monitor. And if you're doing this at scale, meaning you got 500 studies going on every year at your CRO,
Mm-hmm.
even if you put like 20% of them to be international medical monitors, like that's significant return to your shareholders.
Yeah,
And
there's other
The US worker is kind of getting the short end of the stick here.
yeah, but there's other problems in that scenario, right? It's time, right? If you're in Asia, you're asleep when most Americans are at work and awake, where they're going to want to
Right.
talk to you on the phone.
Right. The time zone is, and that's where Latin America grew.
Yep.
Same
They're
time zone.
close enough in time zone.
No, it's the same. Because
No, isn't Mexico City like,
Mexico City is Central Time here.
oh, it is? Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Okay. I thought it was like more than 3 hours difference. I thought it was a
No,
little,
Mexico has Pacific Time, Central Time, and like Eastern Time.
oh, okay. Nice. Well, I guess that works perfectly then.
I mean, virtually no difference, man.
Yeah.
Like, and I've had dinner with these people. I've brick bread with them. They're happy as hell. They want to learn more. They all want to like open sites too. I've been talking about this trend for a while, way before Trump was even on the radar to come back.
Sure. Sure. It'll be interesting to see how or what happens
Yeah, but
over the
what
next
advice do
four
you have to
years.
the US CRO workers? I don't think the CRAs are too affected, but there's a large contingency of people watching and listening that are US based that are angry at this current regime because they're attributing it to all the changes being implemented, which it's incorrect. I know we need a scapegoat, but this trend has been happening
For
way
quite some
before.
time. Mhm.
So what do you have to say to them?
I think I mean, I'm not going to sit here and figure it all out, but as a CRA, I think you can do the math on whether or not it would make sense for, say, a monitor in Buenos Aires who's working for 25% less than you. Does it make sense for them with all the added expenditures of travel, right,
Right.
to come to America and go to a site. Does it make sense for a CRO to employ them?
Yeah, that
You
part
could do the
doesn't.
math on that.
That part doesn't. And the CRAs are not getting laid off really. What's happening is all the support staff or pharmacovigilance is what's getting removed because
Sure.
the CRAs are similar to coordinators in that regard of like you kind of are better off when it's a local person for reasons you mentioned, logistics, one of them, but
Mm-hmm.
also just being close by. Like, hey, I could get down to your site tomorrow if I have to. Like, if
Mm-hmm.
the FDA is coming in a week, I could be there tomorrow and stay for a week. You can't really get that if you're in Buenos Aires and you got to get to Yuma, but you can get that if you're in Phoenix and you
Yep.
and you got to come to Yuma. But the issue with the CRA job market is there's no room for new entrants. And so the CRAs are still safe. It's just they are less burnt out maybe now
Mm-hmm.
because of this. They're having more support staff, either with AI or different tools to make their jobs easier, or just an army of support staff around them in other countries. So you're going to get less CRA burnout, which means hopefully less turnover, which means less of a need for bringing in and refilling your supply of CRAs, which is trickling down to the entry level people looking for where to get their jobs. I mean, it's going to be at the site level. It's looking like.
Well, I guess for those concerned about their position, honestly, your best bet probably is Trump. You better hope he figures out a way to make the tariff substantial enough that it's in your favor that they employ Americans.
Yeah, but they're going to listen and watch and say, Chris, that ain't going to pay my bills, man. What do I
Well,
do right now?
there's nothing else you can do. I mean, it's that or go find a new job, I guess.
My thing is,
Become
if
a
you have,
site owner. We offer a service, DSCS,
there's
consulting
multiple,
service.
exactly, there's multiple tracks. If you have experience, just become a consultant. I know it's not maybe what you're used to, but guess what? Like, what you're used to is kind of being phased out. So, become a consultant. There's a lot of biotechs. Robert Goldman, perfect example of this.
Yep. That's what
Not
I was
everyone can
thinking when
be
you were
Robert
talking.
Goldman. He's a gangster, but if you can kind of position yourself to have multiple small contracts versus like one big job, I think that's your best bet. If you're entry level, I think your best bet, nothing's changed. The small site near you, do anything they need help with. Take out the trash, buy dry ice, help them recruit patients, get your experience there, become a coordinator.
In that vein, with AI coming, I mean, like Dan said it previously, tariffs are just the beginning of this, right?
Yeah.
When AI is perfected in 5 to 10 years, you're not going to have a job anyhow unless you're serving people in some capacity, like person to person, right? Because AI is not going to do that. At least I don't see that in any near future. But if you learn how to operate a site, that will still be required, at least in this industry.
Right. Or regulatory affairs, like help somebody get through the regulatory process.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, AI can,
Even that could be replaced.
yeah, yeah.
Just all they need, they're just not going to speak to the person per se.
You
They're going
need like
to
an advocate
review
to
and send an
go,
email.
yeah, you'll need like an advocate to go meet with the FDA on your behalf and say, well, this is our
Oh,
rationale.
okay.
Uh,
Yeah,
AI
yeah.
can map out the roadmap, but
Mm-hmm.
it still needs to be some adult supervision there as far as does it make sense? How do you explain this to the regulators?
Once AI is perfected, the only safe jobscape is going to be human to human.
Human to human, yeah, because you heard about the agentic AI, right? Like this last example of the AIs can set up, let's say it's regulatory affairs, the AI can theoretically, and I'm sure they already do, set up the regulatory roadmap, but then you have a human being checking it and then actually going to the meetings with the FDA, like for the
Mm-hmm.
AdCom panels or whatever. In the future, you're going to have the drug companies, agentic AI, and the regulators, agentic AI,
I
emailing
don't know
each
what that
other.
is. What is agentic?
Agentic AI is like an agent. Like basically, let's say this regulatory affairs person, right? Their job
Mm-hmm.
is to meet with the FDA and discuss, like, okay, that's your concerns. These are our rationale. Go back and forth, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's a bit essentially like an agent doing some work there.
Okay.
Well, If you replace that with a AI, and then the regulators own agentic AI doing that back and forth, and then you have a human at the end looking and saying, yeah, no, it makes sense. You kind of replace those jobs too, because it's just agentic AI at this point. Or like another more example, a common example, not in our industry, is like a travel agent, right? Like right
They've already
now,
been replaced though.
they've been replaced, but they've been replaced by tools where you go on still and do it.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
your agentic AI will no, you just tell it, this is kind of what I want in this range, make it happen. It'll go out and do it.
So it'll go to the different websites to
Yeah.
find you the
Yep.
best deal for
Yep.
flights
Do the
and yeah.
emails and back and forth and plan the agenda, all that stuff. Agentic work. And that's next. And that's really inference, not so much training. That's more like what you do with the information and how it applies to the unique individual of like what they want. And that's what through reinforcement learning and things like that. I mean, it gets complex, but bottom
Uh,
line, NVIDIA is bullish.
so I'm hoping in my lifetime I see this, not because I'm hoping for this. I just hope I live long enough to see it because it's coming. I want to see fully augmented and implemented robotics, right? In which you can't really tell the difference between a robot and a human. And that's coming, in my opinion. I think
Yeah.
20 years, maybe 25.
Well, Elon, like Tesla's doing it with Optimus, but Elon said he
Yeah, but those
purposely
aren't
made them.
human like. Yeah, those aren't
Right.
human like.
He said they purposely made them look like robots to not scare people too much and to easily differentiate, like in the house or on the street.
Yeah, and they still have to perfect AGI, right?
Of course.
Or is it AIG?
AGI, but it's
Yeah.
whenever, if it ever can be perfected. I mean,
Oh, I think it can be personally.
well, humans are imperfect. So if you're going for a
Well, okay.
perfect version of a human, you're not going
Well,
to get that.
it would be Spock, right? Or something like that would be the robotic implementation of that AGI where it can learn on the
Right.
fly,
Right.
but it's very, like you're saying, it's almost perfect because it's never
But
wrong.
even someone like Spock, let's say that's the ideal. You can still poke holes in that. Like even in our own industry or any hospitality, you don't want Spock to make you feel better about something. Like
No,
or to
no,
have empathy and
no, no.
walk you through some shit that's like
And I don't think it will. You'll still require humans for that stuff.
maybe not.
I think you will.
I don't know.
I think it'll be like almost nightmarish if that's not the case, personally.
Never
But
say never, man.
again, I don't necessarily want to see this. I just hope I live long enough to see it.
Right. But where do you think our let's fast forward 30 years from now, okay? What's our industry look like? Sites, Yuma clinical trials, there still a need for Yuma clinical trials?
Well, so I can't really answer that question without starting from the beginning. It, well, I guess you could, but my mind's more jumping to with the advancements of computer technology and how long it takes to develop a new compound. How much will that accelerate in the near future? Right, as computer, if we get to quantum computers and things of that nature, where it used to take 5 years to develop a new compound, what if we could do it in 5 days?
And it might.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if we get there, I mean, everything else has to develop in such a haste. Well, not haste, wrong word. Everything else needs to be operate to be able to operate as quickly.
Yeah.
They will have to implement AI everywhere. It'll just
Yeah.
if they can get there, everything goes AI because
I kid you not,
those would be
man.
the bottlenecks then.
The thing that scares me the most as a site owner, even 30 years from now, around 7 years ago, I worked with this company out of Spain. It was called Qubim, Qubim. They're still around. They were pioneering in silica trials. So they could get, and it wasn't on the human body level, but it was on the organ and system and cellular level. They would use algorithms and AI to create a digital twin of, let's say, someone's lung. And then, so they got it accurate to like even down to the cellular level. Then they took a kind of like a simulation of that twin with the investigational product, what they know about it and how it reacts on the body system and all that.
Mhm.
And they're able to get decent results in order to have more confidence on spending real money on real human being trials. Now, if you get the digital twin down to like, let's do it
Science,
for metabolic disorders or like obesity, I think the
sure.
hardest would be psychiatry. But it could get done for asthma, for psoriasis. I mean, those are like immunomodulatory autoimmune conditions.
Hmm.
You may not need people, and then you just consent to giving this AI access to your digital twin of a body system.
Sure.
It's they're already working on it. It's just the matter of when it's going to actually replace like what sites do.
Hmm.
And I don't know the answer to that, but it's
And it could
that's
actually be even more beneficial results if developed in such a way. If you
yeah,
could essentially 10x time, right?
yeah,
Opposed to running a trial for 1 year, now you're running it for 10 for safety, right? You're using actual humans
yeah.
for the 1 year trial in a phase three. Now we can run it for
This
10 years or 100 years.
and you compensate the participant. You give them a crypto. They were talking about this. You give them an incentive based on some blockchain reward to
Mm-hmm.
continue to share their data with you in real time. So like when your body actually changes, you update your digital twin now. You get a $50, let's say, sent to you with Solana. I mean, they were already working on this.
Mm-hmm.
None of us are safe, guys. None of us. It's just you, pharmacovigilance, startup specialists. You're the first ones to get hit. You know,
They've
you're letting us know. I mean, I think you guys need to consider becoming consultants, contractors, CRAs, CRCs, site directors,
they've made 1,000 movies about this, right?
right?
Anything's possible.
Yeah. But these are real like Kibim.
No, I no doubt. I mean, it's all coming. It's just a matter of how much will it affect actual humans? Will it be a positive or a negative or somewhere in the middle?
And it boils down to the regulators at the end of the day, which brings it back to politics. Like,
Oh yeah,
it boils down to do the regulators allow this to happen,
E-
right?
Elon has said many years now. Everybody's wrong about what the danger to humanity is. It's not global warming, it's AI. So he said repeatedly over and over and over again. And I agree.
It's not global outsourcing,
Nope, it's AI.
it's AI.
He said we better be on top of this and how we deal with this.
Well, this was a good doom and gloom pessimistic pod.
Well,
We
is it
just made people
pessimistic?
more
Is it
pessimistic.
realistic, pessimistic, or optimistic? I would say it's realistic. I'm not saying
I see it
that
as optimistic, but
I don't think it's optimistic either.
people
I think
want
it's too early to
security.
tell. It's
Chris,
too early
people
to
want.
tell.
No, I'm optimistic that I'll be able to find the new trend and figure out something.
Yeah, unless AI is beating you there, because
Um,
it can work 1,000 times harder than
yes,
you.
but AI has to like if you boil it down or distill it to each individual vertical, AI still needs time to mature in that vertical.
No, no
But
doubt, no doubt.
if you're there first, there's arbitrage.
Yes, until you're replaced because it can do it 1,000 times better.
Of course, and then you have to continue to innovate and
Mm,
continue to
that's where I think you're
create
screwed.
value.
Once it's 1,000 times better than anybody at anything, I think we're all screwed personally.
Then it's gonna have to be regulated
Yeah.
down to where it's controlled, like really, so you don't affect entire generations at
Or
once.
it's or it's UBI.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. What if the AI, what if it's a true value add where you just increase economic output because everyone's empowered with these tools?
It's entirely possible. That's why I'm saying I'm trying to be realistic. I think that's possible. I
Yeah.
also think it's possible it becomes Terminator. I think both spectrums are possible.
Well, with our governments around the world being so restrictive, it's unlikely that's the likely
But think
outcome.
about it. Think about it. What if you piss off Iran so much, they develop Terminator and think they can control it? And it's an AGI, so it thinks for itself.
I think there's smart people at that forefront of these things, and there's probably only several hundred right now that are truly
No, no
dangerous.
doubt, no doubt. But 50 years from now, when this is implemented fully, or 100 years,
Yeah,
which, and you can piss off a country that's very small.
yeah.
It has no military to speak of, but it does have the technological wherewithal to create a Terminator,
Well, I
right?
think the AI defense systems kick in at that point, like Palantir. They're able to predict. You get into Minority Report, crime predictions, and
Yeah, I'm just saying this has the potential of going both ways. It really does.
of course. But what's more likely to occur is some balance of what we've
Uh,
discussed.
this is where you and I philosophically differ. I think people tend to be evil. You think they tend to be good. I think it's more likely we wind up with the evil.
Yeah, I disagree. But
Exactly. I knew we would.
on that note, we'll end it because we got to do another pod. But thank you, Chris. I mean, become a consultant, contractor if you're in the U.S. and you've been affected, or start a site
I
like Chris
thought you
said
were talking to
jokingly.
me initially. I was like, well, I'm already a consultant.
Well,
What are you
you
talking
already are a
about?
consultant, man. We can't wait till AI replaces that aspect.
Yeah, right.
Uh,
Sorry, Dan.
yeah. No, no. I'm just, thinking about what people can do here. Like, I know we joke about start a site, but I can think of worse things.
Yeah, we offer a service. If you're in a position that you think you want to, hey, one of our probably third biggest client is CRAs, right? So if you're in the field, understand some of the aspects of research, you might find owning a site's a thing for you.
Anecdotally, from the physician site owners to the CRA site owners, who makes a better site owner from what you've seen?
So the problem with those who have some knowledge of the industry, they think they know it all when they really know very little, right? In
Ah,
terms of being a business owner. So
I
that's
agree. I
kind
agree.
of bothersome, at least for me, who's a consultant for them,
No, I
right?
agree. It pisses me off, especially CRAs, that just because you know how to write a trip report doesn't mean you know how to do a study when you get it.
Exactly. Or the business development aspect or anything else from
Yeah,
the site side, right?
yeah,
Well, to be fair, CRAs do know quite a bit about on the site side, but not necessarily daily operations, right? They know how to do regulatory. They
and
know how
not
to Q and
necessarily
A.
like income generating
Exactly.
activities. They may
Right.
know defense, like here's how you don't get audited. Okay, good. We're not gonna get audited, but we're not gonna eat either.
Exactly. It's the CRAs make great clients when they realize that they don't understand that. And every one of them initially think they do.
So you require humility.
Yeah, you just need to, well, humility and willing to change your opinion, right? A lot of people aren't. Um,
Many people watching this, they're gonna hate. They might even unsubscribe some of them. Like, oh, these guys don't get it. They're making fun of it, but it's
no,
serious.
I just said CREs make great clients once they realize that it's a completely different ball game. Well, not completely. I mean, it's the same ballpark, but that's
Yeah,
about it,
yeah.
right? Some doctors are a little too full of themselves. Most of our clients that are doctors are not that way. I can only think of two that are. Um, then they're probably going to watch this, so that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Though I do talk to quite a few of them regularly. If they do watch, they're going to be, "Hey, am I one of those too?" But anyhow, so I like dealing with the doctors, especially again when they have some humility. I probably like
Yeah.
dealing with them the most, honestly.
I agree. I think I think the best entrepreneurs in general are smart enough to know how to do basic things, but not too smart in the sense that they don't want to replace themselves. Because at some level, no matter what business you're in, if you want to grow, you have to get your business not dependent on you. And
Mm-hmm.
a lot of these people who think they're too good or too smart and they can't be replaced, they don't think to build a system without them. And so they
Mm-hmm.
are
I'm the
their
focus.
own,
I'm the
yeah,
key.
they're their own handcuffs
Yep.
in a way. Whereas you kind of need to be hardworking just enough, but you also need some laziness. Like laziness might be a virtue also. Like, how do I make this? Okay, I'm willing to do it.
There's a saying for what you're describing.
What is it?
Don't work hard, work smart.
Well, there you go. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. I guess that sums it up. And I know some of you CRAs are lazy as hell, so there's a chance for you. All right,
See, you offended people, not me.
unsubscribe and go tell a friend. Bye bye.